Hi everyone, this is Hillary Ramp here, and I'm going to tell you about the StoryCorps app. In 2016, AASL identified it as one of the best apps for teaching and learning, so I'm going to share some ideas about how you could use it in your library or classroom. To give you a little background on StoryCorps, this is an organization that has been around since 2003 with the idea of getting regular, everyday people to interview each other about the stories of their lives. Participants have recorded over 60,000 interviews in permanent or mobile recording booths across the United States, and then all of these interviews are archived by the Library of Congress, making it one of the biggest oral history projects of its kind. If you ever listen to Morning Edition on NPR, you've probably heard excerpts of the StoryCorps interviews, which are broadcast every Friday morning. So why make all these recordings? Well, the basic mission of StoryCorps is to preserve and share humanity's stories in order to build connections between people and create a more just and compassionate world. Previously, interviews and recordings were only done in special recording booths, but the organization wanted to broaden its reach and make this opportunity available to anyone with a smartphone. So that is where the app comes in. The StoryCorps app makes it possible for anyone with a smartphone to become a StoryCorps participant. The app is only intended for individuals 13 and up, so I'm going to focus on how you might use this app at the high school level. The app is free and available for iOS and Android devices, and there's also a website that allows you to access almost all the same tools and features. The only thing you can't do on the website is actually record the interview itself. So the app guides you through the entire process of preparing for and recording your interview, starting with coming up with interview questions. You can actually select questions from lists built into the app, or you can come up with your own. It guides you through the logistics of recording, and then also how to upload and share your interview. And so throughout the entire process, the app prompts you with helpful tips and tricks to make sure everything is smooth and simple. And then after you're done recording your interview, you're encouraged but not required to archive your interview with the Library of Congress so that others can listen to it. In addition to recording your own interview, you can also browse other interviews that have been uploaded by people across the globe, interviewing friends and loved ones, learning about each other's lives. So that's a pretty cool feature to explore as well. So how can you use this in your library and classroom? Well, there are lots of teacher resources to explore on the StoryCorps website that complement the app. I'm going to highlight two here. One of them is the Great Thanksgiving Listen, and this is an annual initiative that takes place over Thanksgiving weekend, in which participating high school teachers encourage their students to record an interview with a grandparent or other elder during the Thanksgiving vacation. And along with this, there is a teacher toolkit that includes lesson plans and additional resources to help teachers figure out how to integrate these interviews into their academic curriculum. Then there's also the Unheard Voices curriculum, and this curriculum features StoryCorps interviews about LGBT history and provides teachers with suggested discussion questions and activities and other resources so they can find ways to incorporate that curriculum and those interviews in their classrooms. And also, there are so many ways you can use this app beyond just the teacher resources provided on the website. Librarians could use these ideas in collaborative lessons with teachers, or as a librarian, you could present some of these ideas in a professional development context in letting your teachers know some of the opportunities to use this app in their classrooms. So I've got a couple of examples here that I'll talk about. In social studies or history classes, teachers might be interested in having students create some kind of oral history project where the students could interview individuals who have experienced a particular event in history, such as, the assassination of JFK or experiences on 9/11. In English language arts classes, you could use the app to help students learn how to write high quality questions. You could also use it to have students practice using rhetorical devices in speaking when they interview each other. In a journalism class, you might want to help teach students the basics of conducting an interview, how to ask good questions, because the app has a lot of really helpful basic information about how to go about conducting an interview in a professional way. And then also for college prep, StoryCorps interviews tend to elicit the types of stories that end up making really compelling college admissions essays. So if you can get your students to interview each other and kind of dig deep into their narratives about things that matter to them, things that make them tick, that can be a really great way to get them started on those college admissions essays. And then in terms of using the StoryCorps app in the library, there are a lot of different ways you could use it to promote young adult literature and library programs. I've got a couple ideas here. If you have an author or guest speaker visiting the school, you could select several students to interview those authors or guest speakers, and then post those interviews on a library blog or on the school website. You could do those you could have students do those before the visit to kind of drum up some excitement, or you could have them do it during the author or guest speaker visit to the school. Book displays. One way that you could incorporate this app into your book displays is that you could highlight interviews from the app that you think are likely to be of interest to your students, and then make those interviews accessible through a QR code, and have that displayed, and then create book displays related to those interview topics. So the students would basically scan the QR code, listen to the interview, and if they were intrigued by it, then they would see a book on that display that was similar in some way to the interview. So that might hook them into some books they wouldn't have found otherwise. Another thing that you could do is have students conduct interviews on books that change lives. So you could do this in conjunction with an English or journalism class, working on their communication or presentation or media skills. Or you could do it in conjunction with a library program like Read Across America or some other kind of library event, and just have students conduct interviews with their fellow students or with staff members about a book that changed their life. So that's a great meaty topic that there's a lot to dig into there. And then the last thing that I'll mention, you may have seen the Libraries Are for Everyone posters that are all over the internet recently, and they encourage everyone to realize that libraries are welcoming places for people of all backgrounds and cultures. So you could create a display that highlights books and other resources that feature a diverse array of people, and then encourage students to share their stories through creating an interview on the StoryCorps app. So those are just a few basic ideas to get you started on how you might use the StoryCorps app either in your library or classroom. I hope that you've enjoyed this and maybe learned a little something new, and thank you so much for watching.